there was a lot more depth to it because I used to be close with Circus Runaways, and that was closer to 2001 to 2003. Myself and Josh were really close with Chris, Law, Josh, Jermaine, all of those guys from Circus, like their first generation guys. And they weren't really, they were Circus, but they weren't Circus.
Now let's walk into the Knuckleheads era.
Okay.
How did you well you've already touched on how you became friends with them by going to the practice and kind of linking up with them in that level. When do you cross the line where now it's like I'm in now? From we're just homies practicing to I'm a member of the crew.
Well, when I first saw them in 1999, like much like everybody else, like whether they admit it or not, I was blown away. You know, Knuckleheads Cali, Knuckleheads Vegas, to me, um, gosh, I love their movement, and I love the fact that they did what they wanted to do. They didn't focus their movement on, well, we want to win battles, so this is how we have to break. You know, and they just expressed themselves wholly and freely, and I really related to that. And so I'll be honest, you know, I wanted to be a Knuckleheads the moment I saw them getting down, you know, and so I lobbied to get down with that crew for years, you know, and it took me about 4 years to get down with Knuckleheads. And now I wasn't always consciously chasing it, but we were becoming friends, we were becoming closer, and I just knew like I want to be Knuckleheads, you know. And I would always joke around, and Millhouse would always say like, "Hey, don't be throwing your fist up to your head just yet," you know, like there's rules here, right? And
Right.
so like I always respected that, but we ended up having a little get together in Canyon Country, and Millhouse kind of got me drunk, and then we did like this 30-minute battle, and it was me and Josh and from Floorgasms, and he ended up tapping out halfway, but I just stayed the course, and that battle nearly killed me. But after that is when they were like, okay, like we think you're in, but you're not fully in yet, you know. And then shortly we did that battle, the 2-on-2 at What Lies Beneath, and then Millhouse and Bert took me up to the Canyon Country Hills, and then they got me down, you know. And you know, it's just been an amazing journey since. But the one thing was that I was the outsider. You know, I was the guy in Knuckleheads who wasn't from Canyon Country. I wasn't from Santa Clarita Valley. And so, and I obviously had a different approach. I had my shenanigans were out of control. I was a little bit more wild back then, and pretty crazy. And my goal wasn't to make Knuckleheads crazy. My goal was to break all of us out of this shell that was Canyon Country. They were exploring, but I wanted to put us on the map. And in order to do that, I felt like we had to be completely unhinged. We had to just rip those chains off and just throw ourselves to the wind and just see where it goes. And I took a lot of risks that I wasn't necessarily sure on, but it kind of goes back to, if it feels right, it is right, you know? And so I took a lot of risks with the crew. I put us on the map. Not alone. I don't mean that arrogantly, but I was able to put us on the map by taking those chances. And you know, I'm just really grateful that the guys were really open to that, and that they gave me those opportunities, and that they ran with me. You know, because obviously I couldn't do any of this alone, and so you know they trusted me with the crew and the name, and I just ran with it, and it just picked up. You know, and like I said, that's a whole nother podcast in itself, of stuff that we did, and a lot of it, you know, contributed to our success, and a lot of it gave us a lot of trials and tribulations, because we were doing things that people were maybe not confident enough to do on their own. And you know, it did trigger our rivalry with Knucklehead Zoo as well. So,
Right.
there
So
was
how
a
did
lot
you
that came from it.
not to cut you off, but how did you like you telling us it took you 4 years to get into this crew that you were like, yo, I want to be down. So when you go from Knuckleheads to a split with Knuckleheads Cali and now Knuckleheads Zoo, how did you take that?
Well, I
Was
mean,
it
when
pretty
when I
upsetting?
first got down, Cali and the Zoo, they weren't one crew.
Okay.
It originated as one crew from Santa Clarita Valley, from Canyon Country, and then Millhouse stayed down with some of the other guys, and then some of the guys moved to Vegas. Long story short, it was still the same home base, if I can say that, with just two different entities running the same, kind of in the same direction. Knucklehead Zoo really picked up a lot of steam. They were making a lot of noise. They were getting a lot of notoriety. And we were still kind of working towards that. But like I said, we came with a lot of shenanigans. And some of our shenanigans were extreme. And so they felt as if that was really hurting their goals for success, because obviously people still to this day don't know the difference between Cali and the Zoo. So they were picking up a lot of what we were doing, and so that caused the rift. They wanted us to change the name, and Millhouse, being one of the founding members, wasn't going to change the name, and so that really caused a giant rift between us. I had been friends with some of them, but I wasn't as close as Millhouse was. But I didn't take it so personal, in the sense of like I felt betrayed or anything like that, because I hadn't been that close to them. From a competitive standpoint, man, iron shaped iron, iron
Right.
sharpened iron. Like we brought out the best in each other through our developed hate for each other.
No doubt.
It was constantly on edge, constantly on our toes, because we never knew when they were going to see us. They never knew when they were going to see, we just never knew what corner we turned, we would encounter them. So we always had to be ready. So it really brought out the best in all of us. And stuff like this doesn't exist anymore. You don't have beef like that anymore. And, I wouldn't change anything, because, we're successful for that reason. And same thing with them. I would hope that they wouldn't change anything, because they were able to learn a lot of things about themselves to better, to reach better progress for their journey. So yeah, I didn't really take it too personally.
One thing that I did think about though, I was looking at like oh, well, before I even go there, to your point, when you talk about always having to be ready, is like we don't know when we're going to cross paths, but when we do know that when we do, it's going to be high level competition, so we better be ready. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So, but my point was that I was getting to was, I look at Knuckleheads Cali and I look at Knuckleheads Zoo, right, and I compare them, and my question is, does Knuckleheads Cali get to be Knuckleheads Cali if that riff and that split doesn't happen. And what I mean by that is like, you guys are both high level crews, but the way that you guys like, I see more Knuckleheads Cali as the rockers and Knucklehead Zoo as like the hip hoppers. I don't know. I mean, like, and maybe I'm saying it wrong, but I don't know if you guys, if Knuckleheads Cali gets to flourish if that break doesn't happen.
I think so, because I think that that's what triggered the beef. Because we were starting to explore a lot of, uncharted territories in our movement. And so at the same time, we were taking a lot of risks. We were breaking differently. We were acting differently. We were wild, man. We were just off the chain. And that noise that we were causing was not aligned with what their goals were. And when you say, they were more, hip hop and starting to gear more towards that traditional approach, that was intentional, and that comes from my discussions with Ben, is that they were trying to be more successful because they were doing more TV show work. They were trying to get more commercial work. They were looking at it as, we're trying to make a living off of this.
Right, they live on the strip, right? They're on the Vegas strip. They're trying to get paid.
Yeah. And when you're trying to make a living off of something, you have to adhere to some type of rule. You have to kind of follow some sense of guideline. Unless you're able to distribute yourself in a sense where you don't need to really follow anybody's rules, then yeah, you have to kind of walk the line. And so what we were doing was challenging that line. And that's where they were kind of like, hey man, you guys are ruffling our feathers a little bit too much. And we never did it intentionally as an act towards them, but that's how the scene received it. Like a lot of people would say like, have this approach where they thought Mike Murda from Knucklehead Zoo was Mike the Cure. So they'd go up to Mike Murda like, hey, you're Mike the Cure, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, after so long, it becomes too much. I can maybe see that point of view. So that's why it was probably like, hey man, you guys either, you guys are taking this in a direction that we're not really okay with, and our choices, because we were somewhat aligned, our choices, they didn't agree with some of our choices. Like for one, getting me in the crew was already a stretch, but then getting Paranoid Android in the crew was like, all right, you guys are kind of veering a little too far off the course, and we're not really following your guys' rules, so we're kind of doing our own thing. And so that really caused like those creative differences, which is what you'll hear in Hollywood, right, where people part ways because there's two different visions going on. So I think we still would have been successful. I think we still would have been who we are now, because that was the path we were already on. It was never a reaction to them. Well, I mean, it just depends on how you look at it, because those films are a product of their time, right? So like,
for more quality content from Beyond the Cypher with Illskillz, don't forget to press the like and subscribe buttons. Also, feel free to follow us on Facebook and IG at Beyond the Cypher. Let us know how we're doing in the comment section, and to make sure you don't miss anything from the channel, smash that notification bell. We appreciate the love and support. Peace. Until the next episode.